Hello, welcome to Talking Who.
Indeed, episode 9.
We've been going for 9 weeks now.
9 weeks, I
yes.
know. 9 weeks of the very first ever
live
YouTube
videocast around Doctor Who.
And lots of Doctor Who podcasts.
Yes.
And I think some podcasts may have experimented with video, but I don't think...
We're the first live streaming one.
We're the live streaming
yes.
video webcast.
So there we are, we're pushing the frontiers of
Indeed.
Doctor Who fandom.
And I hope, obviously it's the last one of the sort of
present series.
And there will be more over the summer during...
Well, there's other stuff. We've got Torchwood coming up. There's new episodes of the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yes, which we don't know when that's broadcasting.
Yes, but it's going to broadcast sometime this year.
Yeah.
The new series is going to come back later this year. Have they announced the dates yet? Or
no, they haven't.
Right, so we've got the new series. There'll be the Christmas special.
So there's plenty to talk about.
The big news, though, is there may be no Doctor Who next year.
So yes, after a huge announcement last week that there was going to
yes,
we have commissioned 14 new episodes.
I'm like, that was such a shock.
It's like
the BBC has commissioned more episodes of its #1 rated show.
And then yesterday, suddenly, today, it was like, but we're not going to tell you when they're going to show these 14 episodes.
And it might not even, yes.
Some of them might be shown in 2012, but not all of them.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what is it they're actually playing with? I mean, I can understand.
And is it going to be, we're going to have like 6 episodes 1 year and 7 episodes? Is it going to be like really, really short seasons?
Well,
or
you know what? This is the thing. If the whole idea is that, the reason why they split this one up, for instance.
Yeah.
So, okay, this series is 7 episodes. We're going to an autumn series for 6 episodes. If the series are being sort of made shorter, just say that.
Yeah.
We know you're making 14 of them. Just say the next series will be 7 episodes. Will be shown here. It'll be then followed by another 7 episodes, which will be shown here. Why be so mysterious about it and let rumours and panic and question marks arise? Why can't they just be straight about it?
Well, Stephen Moffat, the man himself, he says Doctor Who misquotes and misunderstandings, but I'm not being bounced into announcing the cool stuff before we're ready. Hush and patience.
Indeed. Well, and of course we've actually had some tweets as well.
Yep.
Carl Austin, 13 episodes was a strong emotional investment and wide range even with genres, but at the end of the first series it was sad to see Christopher Eccleston go all after 13 weeks. So he's obviously talking about the idea of 13 weeks as a single arc.
Yeah.
At PT Action, proof that there isn't a shred of guile in the BBC to at least start by rebranding it as such. That was in my response. I think I tweeted about, are we doing 6, 7 episode mini-series? Why can't they just say that? My Poncho Boy says it's a big mistake.
Well, it is.
At Who Facts, 7-year-old Liam, winner of the Blue Peters Designer Doctor Who airing schedule contest, is enjoying his first week on the job. At PT Action then retweeted standalone stories. Much as I love season 6 arc, with this structure smacks of rush, incompletion, and more convoluted game changes. Do you agree with that? Do you think there should be more standalone stories? Do we really need long-running arcs?
How often have we had long-running arcs, and how many successful long-running arcs of Doctor Who for its pretty much 27 years of its life? Basically, you had, how many arcs were there? You had like the Keys of Time. There's the Black Guardian trilogy, and Trial of a Time Lord was an absolute travesty. It was a mess. Keys of Time worked very, very well. I love that. I thought the Black Guardian trilogy worked very well, and the Space trilogy. But I think you've got to be very. I'm not a fan of this kind of half-hearted kind of arcs where you've got a standalone story, but an eye patch lady looks in for a few seconds and that's your arc, or in the first season where they just stuck the word bad wolf somewhere, and that's kind of, I think you either don't do it or you go the whole hog.
Indeed, every episode is to be continued.
Yes, but I really think the idea of trying to do a huge arc when the whole thing is about a guy who travels through time and space, the very format itself lends itself more to
Step
he
up the
arrives
story,
somewhere
of course.
and it's a whole new environment, a whole new situation.
And this, I think one of the problems of doing arcs with that
Yes.
type of story is that, because it then involves that whatever is involved in the story of the arc has to follow him through time and space. And again, it's all about the Doctor then losing what makes him special. Is that he should be the only one who's travelling through time and space. Why is everybody else doing that as well? And that, it's you've got to try and keep the Doctor, the TARDIS, as something unique and something special.
Yeah.
And anyone who can just travel through
magical.
time because they've got a bracelet or whatever, it just ruins that. It ruins the magic of the Doctor. Radio Rassilon tweeted us again. I think the 2012-13 split is fine. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it is a good idea. I would much prefer the show that I love to take regular rests than plough on and on and on and get tired, predictable, and end up being taken for granted. I think it is a good idea aimed at ensuring the longevity of the show, and by the 50th anniversary celebrations, we'll all be gagging for it all the more. That's Leeson of the Radio Rassilon.
And I would when they first did the first break after the first 4 seasons, and they said we're going to rest Doctor Who for a year, do 4 Tennant specials, and then the show comes back. But it's only rested 2 years ago. I mean, I really think sometimes when you've got momentum on something, putting huge gaps in it.
Also, because they spent all this money promoting it in the US.
Yeah,
and
it's just like this whole worldwide thing. Yes.
Stop now, and you're gonna. But if the whole idea is let's move the schedule so it starts in the autumn and then goes into the spring rather than spring into the autumn, that's fine. But why didn't they just say? Well,
what they have found is. And I think sci-fi shows are probably more hit by this than anything before. We were discussing it last week, that television shows are now very much finding that the way people watch these shows is changing.
Yes.
And I think very much with you kind of like stuff like X Factor or kind of like what I call like wallpaper type shows that you just have on. They don't, you just turn the telly on and just leave them on. And I don't think they're very much affected by this. But I think shows people genuinely care about and enjoy, because you enjoy it so much, you want to watch it when you can give it your undivided attention. So, when Doctor Who's on, I like to go out on a Saturday night and hang out with my mates.
Yes.
And like 6 o'clock, I'm cooking my dinner, I'm getting changed. I don't want to be rushing in and watching Doctor Who for bits. I DVR it.
Yes.
And I watch it the next day. And I think a lot of people with a show like Doctor Who are recording it and tape. I think one of the things is the BBC maybe think if they move it to the autumn, with it being winter months, there'll probably be more people staying in to watch it.
That's fine.
The thing though is,
be honest about it.
I think the BBC should be more like HBO, and not really. So long as they know people are watching it, because it's a subscription-based channel. They shouldn't really worry if... I can totally understand a channel like ITV or American networks like NBC, which rely on advertising revenue. If somebody's downloading the show or recording it, they're not watching the adverts.
Yes.
So that affects their advertising revenue. But if the BBC say we're producing a show and a quarter of the viewers aren't listed on the ratings because they're recording it or they're downloading it, well, they're buying their license fee.
They're still paying for license.
They're still paying. So
still paid for.
that people, and so that they know people enjoy it. So I don't think there seems to be this obsession with the BBC for having the ratings there on paper. When I agree with Stephen Moffat totally. Doctor Who's getting 6 to 7 million viewers, but I reckon that there's about 10 to 11 million people actually watching it in the UK, when you include people who are downloading it, recording it, DVRing it, going to BBC iPlayer or iTunes. I just think it's that kind of show.
They do get. I assume they do.
iPlayer get money.
They get.
But with
how many people are downloading it?
Oh well, I'm not so sure about iTunes. The BBC iPlayer. Oh, well, I would have thought they would actually, but iTunes, they put the Doctor Who episodes on iTunes, and people have to pay. Got to pay that.
Indeed, yeah.
And I think once when I missed an episode and I tried to look it on YouTube or download it on BitTorrent, and the BBC had put all this stuff up, going, you got to buy it on iPlayer, and I was thinking to myself, well, I paid for this in my license fee.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So I'm sure. The BBC aren't going to let Doctor Who. The Doctor Who is their runaway. It's the jewel of their crown at the moment, and it's their runaway hit. it's a show people genuinely love at the moment, but at the same time,
I think they know what they're doing. Their PR department has just handled it so badly. Especially in after what they did last week, announcing we're going to do 40. They could have just tied all this together, saying there is going to be 14 episodes. We're shifting the schedule, so it's going to be in the autumn.
And even if they could, even if they could have even just said, as Moffat has implied, that this is all leading up to a huge 50th anniversary celebration, because 2 years' time, Doctor Who will be 50 years old.
Well, that's the thing, and we have big expectations. Just saying hello to some of the people in the YouTube chat room, Doctor Who Ellis and T Chalky, some of our regular viewers. Hello. Yes, that's there was a lot of people tweeting to us saying this was going to be obviously a big subject.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to start talking about our thoughts on really this half season to date. Which I suppose can be defined as being the clone season.
well, we've had an Amy Pond ganger all weekend and all season, and you want to know something? If they could only market an Amy Pond ganger, I'd buy one.
And of course, now that they've introduced the fact that the gangers are being used by the bad guys.
Yes.
I suppose anything goes, because any story.
There's only they've pulled this thing twice. There's only so many times that
they can do anything now with a character. Have them do something completely outrageous,
and then it's a ganger.
It just turns out to be a ganger.
I mean, for all we know, that Doctor who got shot in The Impossible Astronaut could be a ganger.
Could be the ganger, indeed, and a stray ganger that's gone on live for 200 years.
Yes,
in doing his own thing.
Because that's something else that they've got to work out.
And somebody was tying up the loose end by getting rid of him.
Yeah.
And maybe it is the Doctor himself who's killing his own ganger.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But
why didn't he use the
sonic screwdriver? You can't kill people. Yeah, well, you can't. It does everything but kill people.
Well, it kills gangers, obviously.
But this season, what I enjoyed about this season was I felt we had some very, very strong individual stories.
Yes.
I felt the two-parter about the gangers was fantastic. I felt that was back to classic Doctor Who. It was a type of story I could have seen with very, very minimal rewrites. I could have seen Tom Baker in that story or something like that. It was, a type of Doctor Who story, which is what made Doctor Who a show that's lived for 50 years.
Yes, no, absolutely.
It was a great little story. That a lot of clever sci-fi ideas going on it. You also had the Doctor's wife, Neil Gaiman, an amazing piece of writing. I hope we see Neil Gaiman writing back on Doctor Who again at some point.
The great thing about that is that you got a sense that he really is a fan.
He had a huge understanding of the Doctor's history, and also, but what's more important, an understanding of what makes a show special. And we had the Black Spot, not a classic episode, but still a solid episode. And also we had the introduction of I felt very creepy villain with the silence.
Yes, and now, of course, I don't think these guys have been forgotten about. These guys are going to be coming back.
Oh well, I think I wouldn't be surprised if time-wise, Moffat loves shifting things up. I wouldn't be surprised if this is where Melody Pond. I think it's already been established. Melody Pond, the adventure, the Impossible Astronaut. I think time-wise, in terms of Melody Pond, is set after.
The events we've just seen.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's almost like a loop.
Yeah.
They're sort of kind of like in a loop. Yeah. No, that'll be quite interesting, I think. And
but I think the silence, they go with the Weeping Angels as a brilliantly devised concept for a very, very scary monster. This monster that you look at them, and the minute you look away, you've completely forgotten about them.
Well, this is the thing, and so they've actually managed to create a monster that has existed throughout the Doctor Who universe.
And there's an explanation of why
why there's no recollection of them.
Yeah.
Or why and I suppose they were. You got plenty. That's one thing this season has done. It's given the likes of Big Finish and the guys who write the books plenty of material.
Oh yeah.
To fill in as much as they want, or as little as they want, stories that lead up to the events of this particular series. Now
I've said what I liked about this season, and there was a lot I liked about it. But if I had to say what has disappointed me, was I think the overall arc that they're trying to do is a bit convoluted.
Yes.
And I'm getting a bit worried about it. But at the same time, I do trust Stephen Moffat. But I also have to say I found the last episode crushingly disappointing.
Yes.
I was very, very disappointed by this episode. And I actually felt it was some of Moffat's weakest writing.
It was... It's, again, I guess it goes back to the whole thing of being arcs.
Yeah.
You know, does the final episode of a series have to be huge? Does everything have to be big? Do lots of people have to die? Do hundreds of aliens have to be destroyed?
That's how it is on American television. That's always been this American thing. And although I think the whole thing, oddly enough, of season cliffhangers started with Blake 7. Over here, oddly enough, they always used to do a big season cliffhanger. Now, it used to be on television that all the money would be spent in the first episode, and by the time it got to the end of the season, the episodes at the end of the season were kind of like the cheap episodes.
Yeah.
And this whole thing of, you've never had this on Doctor Who or in any of the other shows, of having to have this cliffhanger at the end of the season. It's just, we were promised so much by Moffat. I think it raised my expectations. We were told it was going to be this game changer. The idea that Melody Pond was going to turn out to be River Song was so blatantly signposted. So, I mean, I actually remember saying last year, and I remember tweeting it, and people said to me I was being stupid. I said Amy Pond, River Song. There's a war. You know, are they connected? I already worked out from the name there was some. It was. I just felt it was all so ridiculously obvious that it was disappointing when it was revealed. There was no shock to it, there was no surprise to it. And I also, the fact that this whole thing is supposed to be the Doctor's darkest hour, I've seen the Doctor going through worse. I've seen the Doctor going through much worse in both this new format, I mean, and in the original series.
That's kind of a line that you would have expected, I suppose, from the Russell T Davies story, where it's like the Doctor's darkest hour. It's all this prophesying.
I could completely understand if in the final battle there at the end of the episode, Amy and Rory had been killed, and the Doctor, you know, in their dying words, they say to him, "Find our baby," or something like that. But I don't see why it's his darkest hour. Because they know the baby's okay. In fact, River Song's there, so they know.
And he lives quite happy, actually, doesn't he?
Yeah, and when he also goes, "This is the first time I've been angry," I'm like, well, we've seen Matt Smith actually look angrier than this in previous episodes, and David Tennant was angry, and Tom Baker, they were angry all the time.
They were indeed.
Oh, and every time John Pertwee met a unit official, he got angry just on principle.
Ellis in the YouTube chat room says the thing with River's identity is that I think there is more to it.
You said last week, and I thought this is interesting. River's a pathological liar, and she's a con merchant.
She's a criminal.
And
let's not forget she's a criminal.
Yes, and she knows stuff about the Doctor's future.
Well, she's got her diary.
Yes.
How do we know it's hers? What if it's something that she's stolen from the Doctor?
Yeah.
In the Doctor's future, and she's using the information of the TARDIS diary against the Doctor.
Yeah. What I do also think is very interesting with this season is last season I could not stand the character of Rory.
Right.
And suddenly this season he is becoming, actually to some extent, even more interested in the Doctor himself. He really is becoming a great character, a great companion on it.
Yes, and he's definitely.
He's
almost become the main companion. I think. Obviously they've got this own storyline for Amy.
I find this thing which I almost saw happen with Rose in her second season as well. It's almost like the writers can only write for one companion at a time. And when they introduced Mickey Smith in the second season, when David Tennant joined, it was almost like Rose, who'd been an interesting character in her first season, ended up doing nothing in the second season. And I'm feeling very much this with Amy Pond. In the first season, last season, I felt she was wonderful. I felt she was one of the best companions they've had. And then this season, I just feel she's just stood around and not really done anything and being quite boring, actually.
Yes, no, sure. No, Rory's been great, and it's great to see his character develop, actually.
Yeah.
And it's actually almost a shame that Rory just can't be the companion by himself at this stage. You know, but you know they've given Amy a particular storyline. She's got a destiny, I suppose, that has to be fulfilled. So in some ways, she's no longer necessarily a companion. She's the story.
One thing that's also been getting on my nerves this season is it was funny at first, but I'm now getting very tired of Amy Pond doing these speeches which you think she's talking about the Doctor, and then at the end of it she's actually talking about Rory, or she's talking about somebody she loves or somebody she hangs out with, and they make out she's talking about the Doctor, but it's actually Rory.
That started, I guess, when the series relaunched with Rose.
Yeah.
But somehow we all have to think that the female companion is somehow completely always in love or always in awe with the Doctor. But
it was kind of like
and they keep saying, "Oh, but this one she's not." But we'll make it sound as if she is.
I actually thought it was actually kind of interesting when she's trapped in the Neil Armstrong astronaut suit, and she's talking, and you think that she's talking about the Doctor, and it turns out she's talking about Rory.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite clever. And then at the end of the episode, they do it again.
Yeah.
And at that point, I suddenly felt, you've done it. It was very clever the first time you've done it. Well done. Stop recycling your material. They've now done it about 6 or 7 times, and I feel like that, you know, this should be classed as repeats at the moment. It was bad enough when Russell T Davies would have a joke he found that we thought was funny and would have to reuse it again 2 or 3 times throughout the series.
Okay, Merlin O. McCarley. I'm tired of Amy being an emotional 3-year-old.
Oh,
Dr.
poor
Who
Amy.
Ellis. I really do like Amy Pond, but I feel she needs to step up in the second part of the series.
Now somebody else has put speculation. This is from Dr. Who Ellis.
Yeah.
I've already said this. I think the good man River kills is Rory.
Yeah, I think we did mention this last week. The good
because one thing I've noticed this season they've started to push, which wasn't in his character last season. Not necessarily wasn't there in his character, but it wasn't shown. Is he's very much a moral compass.
Yes.
That he basically, no matter what the situation, and it was actually one of the linchpins in the Ganger storyline, is that no matter what the risk, he will do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's been pushed so much that the Doctor is the good man. We could also say Rory's the good man as well very easily.
You know, River Song says she killed a good man.
A good man, yes.
And of course, you know, this is her father, so why wouldn't she think that her father is a great man?
But he is a good man as well. It's been shown he's a good man. But I also wondered if this River Song killing a good man could be the incident we saw in the Impossible Astronaut.
Yes, no, sure. That'd be interesting. I mean, the
one thing that I like is the one thing I like about this season and this arc is there's threads that are causing discussions between fans like we're having now.
Yeah.
And we know that the one thing that there's so many times when you watch these stories with arcs to them, like Lost, a show like Lost or something like that, and to be quite frank, you get the impression the producers don't know where they're going, that they're just coming out with an idea.
Series that have 26 episodes.
I always thought the beauty of Babylon 5 was whatever was happening on the show, you knew that there was going to be a payoff. You got the impression that the producers and the writers knew what they were doing.
Yes.
And I feel very much the same with this, that there's questions being asked for it, but I totally believe that Moffat and the Doctor Who team already know what the answers are. It's been worked out in advance, and so we're having these debates. The one thing though is I have to say, after being told that the last episode was going to be a game-changing cliffhanger and they seemed so excited by it and it was such a letdown, I'm worried about whether these answers are going to be particularly interesting answers. Indeed,
or whether actually by the end of this series everything will be answered, because I think Stephen Moffat has got a long-term plan.
I've already said this throughout the show, I don't think at the end, I mean, like last season the first time we had a season a season finale, and it didn't tie everything up. We had this thing of who were the Silents, and they're introduced at the start of the next season. I think Moffat hasn't got so much as a season arc like Russell T Davies would have. I think he's going to have an arc that's going to go across the whole of his tenure. Yeah. Well, it's not going to be so much the Matt Smith, it's going to be the Stephen Moffat arc. Right, I think. I think this will be a storyline which, when Stephen Moffat leaves the show, then it'll all be wrapped up. Yeah. And you'll probably find, just as Captain Jack Harkness was very much a character who appeared throughout with the Doctor while Russell Davies was producing the show, I think you'll find the same with River Song. She's going to be a character who will be appearing in it a lot, but once Stephen Moffat leaves the show, her storyline will be completed, and I think that'll be it for her. That's
going to be certainly a character he probably wants to keep ownership of, and probably doesn't want other people writing for.
Yeah.
But I can envisage possibly a young River Song played with a different actress as a companion in
perhaps
in a future series. And that'll be the Doctor looking after her, and whatever that River Song knows about the Doctor, that'll be the time they actually have their story, their moment, their connection, whatever it is that brings them together.
Now, one other thing is, end of this season, we've never had a companion. Actually, Billie Piper has been the only companion since the series relaunched who stayed on for more than one season, other than Karen Gillan.
Yeah.
So, do you think Karen Gillan's going to stay on for a third season?
No, I don't. I don't think so. No.
I know Matthew Smith is locked into 5 years. Even if he wanted to go, he's locked in. Plus, I'm sure he's being paid very well. On the other hand, I would have thought Karen Gillan, she's a companion on the show. She's number 2 on the call sheet. She's not going to be getting the same kind of cash that Matthew Smith's getting. And I'm sure after the success she's had as the companion, the promotion she's getting from the show, I'm sure the BBC will want her for other shows. I'm sure ITV and other channels are throwing offers at her. And also the fact that this has been launched so strongly in the US, she may even be feeling she's got an opportunity of getting a film career going. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see, well, if Amy Pond goes, then Rory's probably going to go as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see the two of them leave at the end of this season.
Indeed. I would agree with that. And I think certainly the Doctor will
and
go
maybe
into the
that would be a
series
time to introduce River Song as a companion.
Indeed. Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. I think it will certainly have a whole, because obviously Matt Smith started with Amy and Rory.
Yes.
And obviously when you change companion and you keep the Doctor, but obviously the Doctor's so associated with that particular companion, it's different. It's different because obviously Rose was there through a regeneration with the Doctor.
Yeah.
So she was the continuity. He'll be the continuity this time. Whereas David Tennant, yes, they changed with Martha and they changed with Donna. But I think it's still going to be a different feel because David Tennant started with Rose and there's that continuity. It will be different having a new companion with Matt Smith, and it'll be quite exciting.
I'd actually love to see them bring Michelle Ryan back.
Really?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Oh, come on! No. She's quite the lady.
And she's not a very good actress.
Same could be said for Billie Piper. Anyway,
Billie Piper was a terrible actress. Let's see. Merlin O'Macali agrees with what we were saying earlier. BBC needs better PR. The Twitter announcement yesterday was avoidable nonsense.
Everything about this could have been avoided. I really think what they should have done was at the end of the last season had a press conference, get Matt Smith along, Stephen Moffat, Karen Gillan, and basically say new series is just first half of the new series is finished, announce the dates for when it's coming back. I still don't know when it's coming back. They should really have said this is when the new series is coming back. They didn't even have a trailer for the new series. Well, I suppose they had a skeleton holding yeah.
But actually,
and I think they should have announced that and said, and these are our plans for Doctor Who for next year, and done it as something that's strong and you should be excited about. Instead, it's coming across as, you know, it almost feels like the BBC don't know what they're having, or they've lost confidence in Doctor Who, or what. And it's been very poorly handled.
Yeah, no, it is. And obviously, you know, it's going into the 50th anniversary in 2013. You know, they've obviously got.
What would you like? What would you like to see in the 50th anniversary?
The 50th anniversary. I think it's. I would like to. That's a tough one. I don't think we.
I'm seeing some.
We're going to get Daleks. I think. Obviously.
No, we got. I actually think. I actually think, and I could be proven wrong here. I think
that's why they're holding off.
I don't think they're holding off. When the producers come out with a comment like that, Russell T Davies would do that all the time. If Russell T Davies ever said anything, you knew exactly the opposite was going to happen. And I think Moffat's doing the same. The one-eyed lady. This whole thing of stealing the Melody Pond, it's what's their motivation? Why do they want to kill the Doctor? You've got this army who want the Doctor dead. Why? What's their motivation? Why do they hate the Doctor so much? They're humans. The Doctor's always helped Earth. He's always saved us from alien invaders. Why? I'm actually wondering who would be the most people to benefit from the Doctor being dead. Who hates the Doctor the most? Who would want a weapon? I'm convinced the Daleks are going to turn up at the end of the series behind the kidnapping of Melody Pond and wanting her used. I could be wrong. This isn't spoilers. This is just my own guess. But why is Moffat making such a big deal about the Daleks now? I mean, the old show, you could go for 2 or 3 or 4 years without the Daleks coming back. We don't have to have the Cybermen back every season.
Or away for like 7 years.
I mean, and the Cybermen have had, to be honest, considering they're like the number 2 villain, haven't had much of a showing. Really, they've had what, about 3 stories, and one of those, well, they had their origin story. Then their next story after that basically ended up becoming a Dalek story. Really, the Daleks took over in that, and then they turned up in the Christmas special, and that wasn't too bad. And then they've been away since then, apart from some cameo appearances, really. And A Good Man Goes to War was actually sold in all the promotions. It was going to be the return of the Cybermen, and they got like 3 minutes at the beginning of the episode.
And they were all wiped out within 5 seconds, which is a shame. Again, it's destroying the marketability of certain characters.
We've cut some response in the message boards. Now there's a bit of anger at me saying Michelle Ryan. Unfortunately, I mean, I think she's wonderful and she's gorgeous.
Right and you're right.
Now, but also there's a lot of people going on here saying Carey Mulligan. Now, a word to you all, guys. Get real. She's an Oscar-winning actress with a huge film career. We're not going to see Carey Mulligan coming back. I would love it if Sally Sparrow came back for just even one guest appearance, but I could never see it happening in a million years.
Jitesh Vora says, in the 50th anniversary, I would like to know the Doctor's name.
No,
I don't agree with that, Jitesh. We don't need to know the Doctor's name.
I'll
tell you what I would like to see. I would like to, it's going to go right back to the beginning. I'd like to see Susan return somehow. Somewhere.
Well, you want to know something.
It's like the biggest loose end that's ever existed in Doctor Who history. You
want to know something? They've alluded to Susan several times, not just in Matt Smith's stories, but also in David Tennant's stories, which is something they never ever did in the whole of the previous Doctor Who's run right after she left. But for the first time, they were alluding to Susan, and the question of the Doctor having a family and being a father is alluded to, and it comes across as a very sore and painful subject to the Doctor that he just doesn't want to deal with.
You know, when he took the TARDIS and ran away, was he running away not necessarily from Gallifrey but from his own family? You know, it was Susan was actually
there was actually a book, a New Adventures book. I think it was called Lungbarrow or something. Yeah. Fans may want to correct me on this, but there was a New Adventures book which was originally a script for a TV story for Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah.
And John Nathan Turner nixed it because he said this reveals too much of the Doctor's backstory. And it got turned into Ghostlight. But
Right.
the idea was it was a story of the Doctor goes back to Gallifrey to his parents' home. And you discover why he basically ran away, because he's got a really weird family. I've never actually read the book, so I don't know. But
Lung Barrow is one of those books that a lot of hardcore Doctor Who fans quote as if it's the canon of the Doctor.
Well, firstly, Lungbarrow, if it ever turns up on eBay, will go for about £50 to £100.
Wow.
It's literally like, for hardcore Doctor Who fans, that was kind of like the book you need to get and to read. So it is literally but the other thing is, that's the story that established, which a lot of Doctor Who or the hardcore fans accept as proper, but it's never been stated on the TV, that Time Lords aren't born, they're kind of like woven in looms or something like that. And considering that Melody Pond has now got is half Time Lord, and I think that's showing that a bit. I don't know, but
the whole loom thing is just a bit just weird, if you ask me. Weird.
Yeah, some people are coming in here going, looms, shish.
Doctor Who Ellis, I think Unit could be back for the 50th anniversary.
Yes.
Ooh,
Well, do you know what I would love to see for the 50th anniversary? I don't think you could do it for them all, because the two Bakers are put on a bit of weight.
Yeah.
Unless you did some Tron, Jeff Bridges type CGI. But I would love to see them bring back some other Doctors. It doesn't have to be like a fifth Doctor, 5 Doctors or 3 Doctor story where you have all of them. But I would love to see, I think you could very, very easily bring back Paul McGann, Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant. Yeah. To help Matt Smith in Adventure, or even just David. I actually think if you did, and I'm sure David Tennant would do it.
Done a 4 Doctor story.
Yeah, but I actually think I think David Tennant would do it. I think if you did something like the 2 Doctors, the 2 of them together, and if you actually did it in the style of the previous 2 Doctors story, where unlike the 5 Doctors, where it's just like an anniversary story, and the whole thing is look how many people we can put on screen and forget about the storyline itself.
Whereas
the 2 Doctors by Robert Holmes, which was the 6th Doctor and the 2nd Doctor battling the Sontarans in Spain, was a storyline first.
Yes.
So it was a good script which the Doctor and Jamie, the 2nd Doctor, Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines could turn up in, and I think that's what we need. If you had David Tennant and Billie Piper turn up for a 2-part story to help Matt Smith and whoever his companion is then, I think that'd be huge with the fans. I think they'd love it, and I actually think David Tennant, would happily take that out of his schedule. Christopher Eccleston, I'm not so sure about, but I would love to. I loved his what did you think of Christopher Eccleston as Doctor? As much as I loved David Tennant, I was very sorry we didn't get another year or 2 of Christopher Eccleston to explore what he established.
I think he was there far too short. I mean, it really was.
But what I mean is, what he did there in that short term was good work, and I actually felt you could have gone further with what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the leather jacket look. I thought it was very un-Doctor-like. But I could understand what it is they were trying to achieve. It's like, let's put quite a well-known, very established British actor into this role. Let's make him look contemporary. Yeah. To establish the show, people can relate to it immediately. They can see that it's completely a break from the previous.
Do you know when he felt that look he had, though, came for me for his most Doctorish? What was the one where they met Charles Dickens? When suddenly he was wearing his leather jacket in Victorian times, because to me that's where Doctor Who works the best, was where he turns up,
he just seems to
and he's not dressed anything like what the time or the place he's supposed to be, but he still fits into it. And I felt with the leather jacket in the modern day stories, he just looked like a regular guy, and I felt that was wrong for the. But when suddenly he was in Victorian times, and
as well.
But I felt Christopher Eccleston gave an amazing performance as the Doctor, and I felt it was a shame but then David Tennant went on to fantastic things as well. So but I'd love to see Christopher Eccleston come back and do it, and I'd love to see Paul McGann get a proper fair crack at the whip. And I know he's been doing the audio plays for Big Finish and for Radio 4. He's been in the audio plays and had great success with those, but I would love to see the 2 of them get to do a bit more.
Yeah, no, it would be great to see Paul McGann, and I think people would really, really like that a lot. Okay, so some comments. We have Doctor Who Ellis.
Well,
David
somebody's
said
actually put
when he
best.
left, he would most definitely be back for a 50th anniversary.
Somebody's actually put Tom Baker and Chris definitely won't do any returns to Doctor Who. Well, the funny thing is, Tom Baker actually said for years he would never do the Doctor Who audios, and now he's signed up to do a whole pile of them.
Tom Baker
and
has changed his mind in the last. He certainly seems to have changed his mind in the last couple of years as far as his relationship with Doctor Who. He has started doing the audios. He's certainly, he's created his own website. He's now trying to promote himself as much as he can.
Yeah.
Trying to sell whatever merchandise he can. So I think whatever he would do, Doctor Who wise, that would help him make more money. I think he'll do it. I've
heard him in interviews actually state. I mean, I remember him coming out in interviews saying,
the Five Doctors decision,
yes,
doesn't he?
He stated openly he regretted that, and I've heard him in interviews say many times. He said, "I want them to cast me as the Master in Doctor Who," or he's come out with these crazy ideas he does. But I think if you come to Tom Baker with an interesting idea, I think he'll be up for it. The one problem for me with Tom Baker is more than any other Doctor, he looks nothing like he did on the show,
yes.
But I just think he would bring this insane energy to it. And in terms of David Tennant, going back to the Five Doctors, if you actually watch the DVD, is probably the best Easter egg ever on any DVD ever released. The Easter egg is the Five Doctors DVD.
Yeah.
The Easter egg is David Tennant doing a commentary over the whole of the story. And he actually keeps on stating throughout it, as a fan, how upset and how disappointed he was that Tom Baker was not in the Five Doctors. But then also says he totally gets that it was a year after the show.
Yes, it was.
And if it had been a year after he left Doctor Who, he said it would probably be very painful for him to come back. Sure. But he actually said, so I think for him as a fan of the show and everything like that, I think David Tennant would be totally up for like 3 or 4 years since he's left the show.
Yeah, no,
so I think he'd be totally up for coming back in the 50th anniversary and having an adventure.
But
I disagree with whatever anybody says. I think the only Doctor who you'd have a difficulty getting back would be Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, I mean, he was very established as an actor before. He's a very successful, very, very, very busy actor.
When we were saying
That's
about
who says Chris has said he won't do the 50th.
You want to know something? People say things.
They change their minds.
And they change, and people change their minds all the time. A good script, a checkbook, and them necessarily having a dry period in work themselves.
Of course, indeed, yeah. Right.
Somebody's put Michael Troughton could play his father's role. Anybody, as we were discussing, because we both saw Camelot on the weekend.
I don't think he could. I actually think he doesn't look much like his
But
father.
what you were saying about Sean Pertwee? That
Sean
he
Pertwee,
looks.
I think, does look like his dad. He's just shorter. I think Sean Pertwee with a bit of makeup could actually get away with it. If he can do his father's voice and lisp, I don't know, because his voice is completely different. But he's an actor. Hopefully he could. I don't think either David or Michael Troughton could pass themselves off as their father.
I don't think anybody could do a worse job than the guy in the terrible white wig in the Five Doctors.
I think Richard Handel did a good enough job. I think I think he did the job that he needed to do. I think.
Yeah. Do you know in the original idea, when it was Robert Holmes was going to write the script, the original idea was at the end they would discover it wasn't the first Doctor, but it was actually an Auton impersonating him.
Oh, that would have been quite clever. Yeah, that's a shame. Then they could have had the Autons for that anniversary. Was that the 25th anniversary?
Yeah, no, that was the 20th anniversry.
20th anniversary, yeah.
They did a 20th anniversary story.
Right, yeah,
then they did a 22nd anniversary story, the two Doctors. And for the 25th anniversary story, it was Silver Nemesis,
yes.
where they didn't have any of the Doctors return.
They had the Cybermen instead.
The Cybermen instead.
I guess people will be expecting some kind of multi-Doctor story in the 50th.
Yeah,
but I do hope that they don't ignore possibilities of previous, either a companion or family such as Susan.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at this week's Fanoptica. And what we have for you is some enterprising fans have come up with an idea to actually do a comic book called Grimlight, based on the adventures of Madame Vastra and Jenny and her maid Jenny.
Mm-hmm. Showing a bit of arse cleavage there. It looks like.
Indeed. You know what? I'd read this. I think this is I'm quite excited by the idea of a Vastra comic book.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're also planning to do their own fan audio adventures as well.
It's actually, I think, interesting that you can really see how certain characters can. You want to know something? I've said several times how much I really did not like the last episode.
Yeah.
But the things that really struck me, that really worked very well. One of them was Madame Vastra. She was a fantastic character, and she's one of those you really want to see a bit more of. I also like that girl who played the cannon fodder. As she's being labelled now.
Laura? I can't remember.
But I think Madame Vastra was great, and I would be amazed if we don't see more of her on the show. And I'm not surprised that the fans have latched onto that character already and want to expand that character.
It's a fun
see
character.
You want to know something? I've said several times, Sarah Jane Adventures was the highest rated show on CBBC.
Yeah.
And the passing of Elizabeth Sladen has been a terrible shock to the whole of fandom, but not even outside of fandom, to the British public throughout. But the BBC, they've lost their top rated CBBC show, and I was actually banking from a business perspective. They would go, right, what other ways can we do a 4Kids Doctor Who show to get the viewers in? How about a Madame Vastra show?
Indeed. I mean, they'd have to take her out of the Victorian setting and put her in modern times, because I don't think that the budget for a CBBC show would stretch to a period show. But I'm sure that would be easy to do.
Yeah. But we don't know how long Silurians live for.
Exactly. I mean,
you could very easily do Madame Vastra in modern times as
Maybe she's got a new maid.
Yeah. And I'm actually sure there's a lot of people within the BBC who would love the subversion of doing a kid show which would have this sort of like Xena Gabrielle kind of undercurrent to it, as to put it.
Right. Okay. So, let's swiftly move.
Let us know in the message boards. Do we have much love for Madame Vastra in the mess? Would you like to see a Madame Vastra spin-off series?
I think it could work. But anyway,
I think lesbian interspecies sex always works. Right, DVD reviews. Right, now the new DVD, I actually got my copy today. The new DVD that's out is The Gunfighters and The Awakening. They've paired up two stories. Yeah.
I don't know how you get it.
But
5 days in advance.
They've paired up two stories which have absolutely no connection whatsoever. So, but as I haven't got round to watching it yet, you haven't watched it yet. Too Entertained don't send us. They've given us permission to show clips, but they don't send us. Too Entertained, we need review copies. Okay, send us review copies. So we're going to review another story that was released earlier, The Ark.
Dodo! That's really very strange.
Birds from Africa, a snake from Brazil, and now an elephant from India.
Where do you think you are?
Just outside London. It's called whip snake.
Strange report from the jungle. The monoids acquaint us of intruders.
I know where I am now. Oh, this is a spaceship.
This is a spaceship. What are they?
We are the guardians of the human race.
Like the Ark?
The Ark?
Yeah, Noah's Ark.
A strange disease, a fever, is spreading among the monoids.
A fever brought by these strangers. Listen to us.
Take them away! Find the prisoner guilty or not guilty.
Trust me. Help me to find a new cure.
You obey.
The monoid plan to destroy the Ark and everything in it.
That will be the end of all human existence.
Cool.
I love this story. I really love this story.
I always treat whenever a William Hartnell DVD is going to come out, I always treat a William Hartnell DVD as something really, really exciting. It's something really to look forward to. I suppose because of the 1960s stories, because so many are missing and so many are wiped, the fact that they've actually got some of these.
Well, the thing is though
it's great, and it's a treat when a DVD comes out.
The first 2 seasons of William Hartnell are very complete.
Marco Polo.
I was about to say they're missing Marco Polo. That's 7 episodes there,
Yeah.
and they're missing 2 episodes of Reign of Terror. So that's what they're missing from the first season. The second season, they're only missing 2 episodes of the Crusades.
Right. Yeah.
But then suddenly, from the third season, and then throughout all of Patrick Troughton's run until his final year, the 6th season, there's virtually no complete stories.
Yes. Sure.
And from William Hartnell's 3rd season, I just think there's the Ark, the War Machines, and the Gunfighters. I think that's all that remains that's complete, and everything else is just an episode here, an episode there, missing all of the smugglers, missing all of the savages, the Dalek master plan, which just looks, the episodes that survive of that, I would give anything to get hold of all 12 episodes of that, and the start mission into the unknown. It looks amazing, that story. So I think that the Ark is, as you say, very important because it's representing an era, and I actually think this is the start of modern Doctor. The first 2 seasons of Doctor Who, it's supposed to be a kind of like educational show, it's a bit highbrow, and this is the period in season 3 when Doctor Who becomes more, I felt almost like Flash Gordon-y type sci-fi.
The Ark is very much a sci-fi show.
Yeah, it's completely sci-fi.
Probably the first instance in Doctor Who of sort of timey-wimey,
yes,
to put a modern spin to it. Because the first 2 episodes is one story, and the second 2 episodes,
that's what I love about
is
it,
another story. But they're set in the same location with the same race of characters.
But they've rarely touched upon this. Russell T Davies kind of touched upon this in the first season with Christopher Eccleston. But the idea of the Doctor has an adventure, does something, and then leaves. What are the repercussions? What happens? You know, he goes somewhere, he creates a revolution, or he deposes a dictator, or he's like America in Iraq. He just goes and he just leaves everybody to just deal with this.
For those who haven't seen it, the first 2 episodes is basically the TARDIS arrives on this massive spaceship, which
the Earth has been destroyed.
Dodo calls an Ark because they've got all the animals that they've tried to save, as well as the remnants of the human species.
The whole of the Earth's been destroyed, and I think this is the first of many times the Earth is destroyed on Doctor Who, and the first of many times the whole of the human race and everything, and basically they have this miniaturizing technique.
Yes,
so everything's miniaturized, so they can store everything. So when they get to their planet they're going to, in thousands of years' times, they can deminiaturize everything and repopulate this new planet.
But they bring with them in the TARDIS the cold virus.
Yes.
Which, of course, these humans, being 10 million years in our future, have not been exposed to for 10 million years. So this is quite devastating. But they get over it. The Doctor finds a cure, and then they leave. Only to discover that the TARDIS brings them back several decades later.
There's this wonderful, actually,
several hundred years later.
It's actually an amazing cliffhanger. I love this cliffhanger to it, where when they arrive, there's a statue being built, and it's supposed to be a statue of the perfect human to represent the human race. And when they get there, only the feet and the legs have been built.
Yeah. And
they come back. The TARDIS brings them back several centuries later. And the statue is complete, and the cliffhanger is, but it's not a human face.
Yes. And we have a clip, I think. Or do we not? Yes, we do. Here's a clip.
They're coming back.
What is this? Why aren't you working? Now! Back! Get back.
So yes, the clip we just showed was from the second half of that story, where set several hundred years after the Doctor's first visit to the Ark.
And
they're basically having to. They're seeing what the consequences of their original visit has led to a complete change of society.
Well,
and now the aliens who were almost like slave-like
Now here's an interesting thing. I actually
taken
thought
over.
the monoids. Now there's an alien in this story, the monoids, and they only have one eye, and it's a very clever little thing where they've got big wigs on and obviously a tennis ball stuck in their mouths. It's very funny. Their eyelids look just like lips. But they're the monoids, and the bracelets the necklaces they've got around their necks that allow them to talk because they have no mouths.
Which they couldn't talk earlier in the story, with the ancestors of the monoids.
Do you know what I found interesting about the monoids? I thought they were identical to the Ood, not in terms of look, but in terms of their behaviour.
Yes,
that they were an alien race that are used as basically like slaves by the humans, and then we actually see them take over. But the interesting thing is, and it shows you a difference and change in attitudes, where now we're shown as to be more sympathetic to the needs of others. In the modern day story, if you have the humans have a slave race, and then that slave race rebels, we're shown on the story from the Ood's point of view of how they're being treated badly. Whereas in this William Hartnell story, the monoids are treated like absolute slaves for 2 episodes, and when they rebel, they're the bad guys, and the Doctor's got to help the humans defeat them.
Indeed. And actually, he has to tell them actually they're both as bad as each other.
Yeah.
Because they're both guilty of exactly the same crimes. But yeah, no, this was actually a really. I mean, I recommend this one, guys. If you haven't bought many DVDs, this is certainly one that I think you should invest in. If you want a story of the first Doctor, which is very much Doctor Who, this is real Doctor Who, as we know it today. This is, as Sean was saying earlier, this is the start of a very sort of the modern Doctor Who.
Yeah. It's the move to science fiction. It's not quite. I mean, as much as I love William Hartnell, the stuff in the first 2 seasons is very stagey. You often feel this is a much more move towards the Doctor Who that this is more similar to what we know and we love Doctor Who.
Yeah. Still seeing if the Ustream's working.
And there's a nice run of extras on this one. There's a very interesting extra I found in which it's basically a discussion of why were the monoids a 1 episode monster,
a 1-hit wonder,
and a discussion of monsters and why. And one thing they point out, which I found is very interesting, is it's very hard to get monsters' feet right. And very often when a monster fails, it's because the fit. And you look at the monoids, and then they showed the crotons as well.
They have to wobble, don't they?
And these, you know,
they walk like penguins, don't they?
And then they also bring up monsters. So they say several 1-hit monsters which only had 1 stories, like the Draconians and the Zygons, which oddly enough the fans are still going on. Bring them back. You know, we loved these monsters. So.
Best Doctor Who says Peter went back to the TARDIS he made earlier. In reference, of course, Peter was obviously a Blue Peter presenter for a while as well.
Well, Peter Purvis actually gives some of the best commentaries on the DVD. He still has very, you know, it's like, what, 40 years ago?
Yeah.
And he still has amazingly clear recollections.
From telling stories over and over.
Yes. He's very popular at Doctor Who conventions. He's been doing Big Finish stuff. Considering that out of all the companions, he could arguably say he went off to have the best career afterwards. You know, he quit acting and became a presenter, but he's still to this day a very, very successful and very well respected presenter on BBC television. And he's somebody who could have very easily turned his back on Doctor Who because he has a whole new career, but he's still very, very supportive of Doctor Who fandom, and is probably quite generally accepted of all the people who worked on Doctor Who. He probably became one of the closest friends to William Hartnell. And then, of course, there's Dodo. This is only one of 2 surviving stories that Dodo's in.
Is it the War Games?
The War Machines. And the War Machines, she's barely in. She probably has the worst exit of any. Do you remember how she leaves the show? She's hypnotised by Wotan to kill the Doctor. Yes. And when she tries to kill the Doctor, you know, they get her out of this hypnosis and they send her to go to sleep. And that's at like the end of the 2nd episode. You don't see her again. And then at the end of the story, Ben and Polly say, "Oh, Dodo's gone home, but she said to say goodbye." She doesn't even get an exit from the show. I mean, what did she do to the producers?
This is obviously also the run where the Doctor's companion had to be a young girl with short dark hair.
Yeah.
Because they all were at this time, weren't they, as well?
Oh, but then they replaced her with Polly, who was a swinging 60s
Yes.
blonde.
And of course, Dodo was a character that really appreciated the Doctor's wardrobe room as well.
I always felt, from what I saw from the surviving episodes, Dodo seemed to be the companion that they did the least kind of work on to establish the character. You know, she was just...
I don't know whether it was just like... It was just the young girl with the short dark hair, generic character that she sort of fit into the scripts, regardless of whether she was going to be in it for this 4 episodes or 5 episodes. Yes. You know, it was... But yeah, no, it's a shame there's not more of her, because I actually quite liked her in this as well. And of course, in those days, obviously with William Hartnell as the Doctor, there is a different dynamic with the female companion. Yeah. Because they did choose young characters, and so it was a. But
I felt one of the things.
It
was a grandfather daughter. Susan. Yes, it was a grandfather. But basically, what you'd have the Doctor, who's an old, crotchety, cranky, but brilliant old man. He would have a young guy who would probably be somebody in his 30s who could handle the action, the rough and tumble, and then a young girl who is a daughter figure to him, like as well as Dodo. After Susan F, there was Vicky, and who was the girl from Rome who lasted one story before being blasted out of an airlock. Check the message boards. I'm sure somebody will bring that one up.
Best Doctor Who can tell us, because he's an expert.
Yes. Oh, this is annoying me now that I can't remember. She was only in 2. She was in the Romans, and then she was in the Dalek Master Plan, and she got shot out of an airlock.
Yes, no, I know who you're talking about. I just can't remember the name.
The Dalek Master Plan. 2 companions died in that story.
It's a shame that the story doesn't exist.
There's 3 episodes that exist of that story, and they are amazing. And have you watched those?
No, I haven't.
And you want to know something? They don't even feel like a William Hartnell story. And the sets are great, and the Daleks are at their most evil. And there's this bad guy in it, Mavic Chen, who's astonishing, great bad guy. And the actor who played him, Kevin Stoney, was brought back several times to play other bad guys in Doctor Who. He was the bad guy in The Invasion, working with the Cybermen, and I think that was Tobias Vaughan, and he was in Revenge of the Cybermen as well as Vorus, leader of the guards.
Oh yes, that's yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you can be a good bad guy, you probably do several stories in Doctor Who as different characters. Sarah Kingdom.
No, it wasn't Sarah Kingdom. I didn't mean her. Although she died.
Demon Cleaner 300-578.
Yeah, she died in the Dalek Master Plan as well. I was referring to the Roman companion who joined at the end of the Mythmakers. She was introduced in the Mythmakers. Oh
yes, no.
Joined at the was it Katrina?
No, I know because I actually recently listened to the Mythmakers.
She joined at the end of that story, and then died 4 episodes later. The end of the Dalek Master Plan.
Katerina?
Yes, Katerina, that's it, yes.
Right, yes. No, I was listening to the Mythmakers recently, actually.
But
I think those CDs are actually worth the William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton CDs are really worth getting into, because the linking narration picture, because you know the actors, you know the characters, you can really see them in your mind when you hear them. And the linking narration does a great job in setting the scenes of where you are. And for those missing stories, I would definitely recommend getting those CDs, because obviously at the end of the arc it goes straight into the Celestial Toymaker, which is one of those really big stories that's missing, that people really, really have very fond memories of those who have seen it.
Well, there's the final episode still exists,
which is on the Lost in Time DVD.
Although unfortunately it's actually missing. There's several seconds was cut out of it. At the very end, they cut out the cliffhanger that leads into the because obviously the station that was airing it wanted it to be a complete story. So it's missing the next episode, the gunfighters bit. And I actually have the gunfighters waiting for me to watch when I get back home.
I think mine arrives on Monday from Amazon.
Yeah.
So, is there any last
I would absolutely wholeheartedly recommend the Ark to anybody on DVD.
Get this one. Don't even hesitate about it. It does have some good extras as well.
It does.
One of them is Peter Purves going to the Riverside Studios where they filmed it, and just talking about the history of Doctor Who filming at the Riverside Studios, which is also a really, really good documentary. Oh, what about the news that the BBC TV Centre is being sold? Isn't that?
Is it? I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, it's they're selling it off, and that includes the Blue Peter Garden and everything, all the studios where, again, some of the early Doctor Who's were filmed. It's just all going to go to some developer probably, which is a real shame.
Well, the BBC are making a lot of decisions at the moment, which aren't good business decisions. But what can you do? For a publicly funded company, a lot of its decisions are rather questionable.
Indeed. So this is the last of our regular.
Sadly, yeah. Until
Talking Who returns with Doctor Who in the autumn.
Well, what we were discussing was basically we talk about the new show and then we review some of the other stuff, such as the DVD, without a new show at the moment. So it's best to go off the air for a little bit. However, we're looking at doing a Torchwood special, because Torchwood Miracle Day is coming soon, so we're talking about doing a Torchwood special. We've also been talking about doing a Sarah Jane Chronicles special as well.
Yeah.
But of course we will be back in full force when the new series resumes for the final 6 episodes. What we'll probably do is we'll probably do a start-off episode the week before, run for 6 weeks, and then have a roundup episodes afterwards. So we've got another, we've finished our run of 9 episodes here, but we've got at least another 8 episodes coming before the end of the year, and a possible Torchwood and Sarah Jane ones as well. So we hope you'll join us for those. Hope you've enjoyed it so far.
Indeed.
Discussing Doctor Who with us. There's nothing the two of us like to do more than talk about Doctor Who.
Well, we can talk about it for hours, really.
Yeah.
Can't you? It's a great subject, and of course, it's, I think that's one of the great things of Doctor Who. I suppose being a product of a public broadcaster is that really we all own it in some way. We all have an interest in it. It's there for us, and I think that's the reason why fans have connected so well with it, is because Doctor Who is whatever we want it to be. And
I think one of the great things about it is that on a lot of TV shows you have a creator who works on the show, who runs the show, and you have the creator and the star of the show. And the show will last for as long as that creator's on it and as long as the star's on it, and they will have a vision of what it should be, and that's how it is for that many years, and it'll end up becoming stale after a while. Doctor Who, because they changed the lead actors, but also I think importantly with the original series, and now they're doing it with the new series, they changed the producers and the script writers as well, that every so many years somebody comes in and goes, right, here's this exciting concept, why don't we do it this way? So like you'd have 5 years of Barry Letts and Terence Dicks doing it, and they decide we'll ground Doctor Who in reality and make it action packed and have unit and have it adventurous, and then Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes come along and they go, well, we can make it darker and scarier and gothic, and then under Graham Williams and Anthony Reid and Douglas Adams, they we can inject some humour into it and more fantasy elements. And John Nathan Turner, when he started off, he's let's get it back more serious and
carry on style.
No, he did some pretty good stuff with it. You want to know something? I'll say his first season of Tom Baker and his 3 years of Peter Davison is some sterling work from John Nathan Turner, and I don't think you can say anything bad about it. And I think that's what's great about Doctor Who, is like the Doctor himself, the show's constantly evolving, improving, shifting with the times, and by the very format. You watch one episode and it's a comedy episode, and the next episode it's a horror episode, and you can watch an episode and it can be terrible, but the next episode can still be brilliant.
Indeed, and of course, as we've had, is that the fans always fill in the gaps wherever they want to, however they want to, and that's why there are so many different ideas about what the Doctor's origins are, or what what his interactions have been with his companions, is because the fans be able to create their own way of deciding how that all fits together. We've had people who write fan fiction, but some of those people who write fan fiction end up writing official books. And loads
Yes.
of books
Or even
and
writing on the show.
radio plays, and then they end up writing on the shows, and it's,
Yes.
you know, it's fantastic. You know, it's been a very inclusive series over the years, and it's really embraced its fandom, I think, in a big way. And that's why we do this.
Yes.
But yes, so we follow us on Twitter at Talking Who.
Yep.
So you'll know that when we will be back during the Torchwood time.
And tell your friends about this show.
Yeah, because obviously
like us on YouTube and on Ustream.
Our fan base between now and when we come
And
back, then hopefully
it'd be exciting. It'd be exciting if when it comes back, you know, we can get more viewers and get, you know, and help to build it and build a Doctor Who community, and you know.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, everyone.
And watch us on those video guys.
That's right. Sean and I still are here every week doing those video guys at 8 o'clock.
But if you follow us on our Twitter, you'll know when as soon as the new series is announced, when it's coming back, we'll be back the week before that.
Indeed. Absolutely.
Now that's it from us.
And we're on Twitter all the time. So take care.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.